teams that will take a step back next season. And Breech, you probably know the fun fact. I'm going to make it up off the top of my head. Typically, there's always a handful of teams that make the playoffs the year before that struggle to make the playoffs the next year. And by struggle, I mean miss it entirely. So I guess the question that I'm putting to you is, which team, quote unquote, overachieved this year and might be looking to take a step back next year? Let's see. I'll give you the teams that made the playoffs: the Bills, the Dolphins, your Bengals, the Ravens, the Jaguars, Chiefs, and Kansas City in the AFC. Let's start there, then we'll circle back to the NFC.
Well, so I think the stat is there's 4 new playoff teams every year since like 1990, which means there's going to be at least 4 teams from this past postseason that do not make it. And you're only asking me to name one. Is that what?
Whatever you think, whatever strikes your fancy.
You know what? I will say I'll take the obvious one. I feel bad saying it. It's just low hanging fruit. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They were barely a playoff team. Yes, they're in a bad division, but I don't know who is there going to be their starting quarterback. Are you giving the job to Kyle Trask? Or are you giving it to Blaine Gabbert? Are you going to go out and sign someone? I have no idea, but whatever they do, I don't think they're going to find a huge upgrade over Tom Brady, and they only won 8 games. And are they going to improve on that? I don't think so. So if you can't win more than 8 games, you're not going to make the playoffs. So I think that would be my top ranked team that is not going to return to the postseason.
We are definitely in off-season form because I read the list of playoff teams from the AFC and said we'll start there, and you went straight to the Buccaneers. But as you mentioned, the Buccaneers have the 19th pick. That's way too low to probably get a quarterback, to your point. So they have some things to sort out. They fired Byron Leftwich as the offensive coordinator. Todd Bowles is still there. On the NFC side, 3 teams from the NFC East: the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Giants made the playoffs. The Vikings made the playoffs. And look, the Vikings weren't posers. They won 13 games, but they won every game by a half a point, which was impossible until last season. You mentioned the Buccaneers, and then, of course, San Francisco and Seattle in the NFC West. So I'll go back to the AFC. Let me ask you this.
And we'll see.
Do you think are the Dolphins going to be better or worse next year?
What's funny is that I was trying to figure that out in my head, and I would have just not talked for 5 minutes, so I just went straight to the Buccaneers. I went to another Florida team. That's because you asked about the AFC. I think that they are going to be better. I just think they can get 9. I think 9-8 or 10-7 is about where they're going to be. As long as their quarterback situation stays the way it is. It's a solid roster. You still have Tyreek Hill, you still have Jalen Waddle, you still have a stacked offense. If Tua stays healthy, I just don't see that team taking a huge step back.
No, I think that's right. I thought Tua was good when he was healthy. The concern, of course, of the concussions. So if I have to drop a team, I'm going to drop the Ravens.
Ooh.
There's concern about Lamar in terms of the contract, not about the football stuff. He did have the injury and didn't play. They changed offensive coordinators. They now have Todd Monken in there. Todd Monken had great success at Georgia the last few years, so that perhaps is an upgrade, but then you have to figure out how does that fit inside the offense that includes Lamar. And this allows me to get in. If you had to guess which team I'm going to put in the playoffs, which team do you think is going to be in the AFC to replace the Ravens?
Well, you're Ryan Wilson, so I'll say the Steelers.
Steelers 2.0, Mac Jones and the Patriots. They're back, baby. Bill O'Brien, going to get that team right. Mac Jones, whatever the odds for MVP, bet him now because you're going to win $1 trillion when he wins MVP next year.
Oh, my God. Don't do this bet, people. Don't set your money on fire. I will say an AFC team. So just because I think the Dolphins win 9 games doesn't mean I think they'll make the playoffs. I just think they're going to be very similar to how they were this year. But you know what? I will go on a limb. I will make my AFC team the Los Angeles Chargers.
You want to get Brandon Staley fired so bad.
Well, look, I don't want Brandon Staley fired because I think that Andy Reid loves having him in the division. So, that's good for Andy Reid. But the one thing I will say about the Chargers is, we don't know what is going to happen with Keenan Allen. There's been some speculation that he could be a salary cap casualty. So you're losing one of your weapons. This team went 10-7, maybe could have been a little better, could have been a little worse. But here's the thing is I think the Raiders will be better when Josh McDaniels has a quarterback he wants there. Not that I think the Raiders are going to make the playoffs. I think the Broncos are going to be better. And again, not that I think they're going to make the playoffs, but if they went 5-12 this past season, if they go 8-9, those 3 wins, I just think the division is going to be overall more difficult because I could see the Raiders and Broncos both becoming 8-win teams, which adds 5 more wins to what they did this past year. So I'm getting rid of the Chargers, and I'm going to put in the New York Jets or the Patriots, one of those two.
So what about this? And someone mentioned this in the comments, Josh Dooley, I believe. The Bills are going to slip. Are you buying that?
I mean, I could see the Bills slipping. They went 13-3, but I don't think they're going to miss the playoffs. Even if they regress by 3 games, they're still 10-7. I still think that's good enough to put them in the playoffs. So I could absolutely see them. I mean, the beatdown they took to end the season. So, we all remember the 13 seconds, divisional round playoff loss to the Chiefs. That kind of thing puts a chip on your shoulder and says, oh, we are this close to the Super Bowl. We just need to make 1 or 2 moves. We'll get there. When you get a beatdown like this, I feel like that makes you kind of reevaluate everything. Like, man, we had no shot in that game. Where do we stand in this conference? We don't even know. We're barely the 3rd best team at this point because the Chiefs and Bengals are 1-2. So I could see them taking a step back, but I just don't think just the AFC East. I just think they're the best team in the AFC East. So maybe 11 games wins the AFC East.
The other thing is, I think we probably both agree that Josh Allen wasn't 100%, even though he didn't say his elbow was bothering him after that Jets game back in November, December, whenever it was. And I suspect his elbow will be 100% when he takes the field in September, and he'll look a lot more like MVP Josh Allen than end of season Josh Allen, who admittedly wasn't the Josh Allen we were used to seeing. All right, let's go to the NFC, which you already gave us a sneak peek. The Buccaneers are the layup, easy answer. All right, let me ask you this. Can the Seahawks make it back to the playoffs if they re-sign Geno? I'm asking you, do you trust Geno in 2 straight years?
I don't think so. I think that I was on the fence between Tampa Bay and Seattle with who I would eliminate. It's not that I don't think, to me, they're like the Dolphins, but not as talented. Like, I don't think they're going to fall and be a 6-11 team. I think they're going to win 8 or 9 games next year, but you also have this whole year of film on Geno Smith now. The Seahawks, I think,
He's
surprised.
been in the league since 2014 or
Well,
whatever.
I'm talking about in the sense that nobody knew what the Seahawks were going to be like, and I think they caught everyone off guard by how good they were. They're not going to catch anyone off guard in 2023. So I think it's going to be a little tougher for them to get to 9-8. So yeah, I'm throwing the Seahawks out with the Bucs.
Okay, in that division, do they finish second, or do you think the Rams with no players on their team or the Cardinals with a new coach and an ACL torn quarterback have a chance to make noise against the 49ers?
What's funny is I think I made a bet with Adam Beasley of Pro Football Network. Man, Beasley out there getting me drunk and roping me into bets. We made a $50 bet, and I said the Rams would finish in one of the top 2 spots in the NFC West. They don't have to make the playoffs. They just have to finish in 1st or 2nd place.
The Rams?
The Rams.
And Billy asks, do you think D-Hop would go to the Rams? Will that help them? I mean, I don't know. Their offensive line is an issue. They have a lot of old guys.
Yeah, the offensive line, it definitely is the big issue. But I don't think the Cardinals are going to be better. I think the Seahawks are going to take a step back. So it just feels like the Rams, and not that I think they're going to make the playoffs. I just think they'll be the 2nd best team in the NFC West. I think the Lions would be an interesting pick. And then
I was going to ask you, what are the Lions' chances of winning that division? We don't know what we know now. Like maybe Aaron's there, maybe he's not.
40%.
I think
it's pretty high. I feel like I don't really like the Packers next year. It's just there's too much drama with Aaron Rodgers, and if you trade him away, then Jordan Love's a 1st-year starter. So man, and the Vikings could take a step back. I don't think they're going to win 13 games again.
I was going to ask you, who do you trust more, Geno Smith or Kevin O'Connell going into year 2, quotation marks?
Kevin O'Connell.
Really? Okay.
No hesitation. What about you?
All right. I'm not going to take the Vikings.
Who do you trust?
I was going to say the Vikings feel like a layup to pick not to make it because they did struggle. I would imagine they're going to fix the defense. Tampa Bay is the obvious one. I have to pick one of the teams in the NFC because 3 teams made it. So obviously the Eagles are going to win 2 football games. I'm kidding. Is there a chance Dallas misses? Like I feel better about the Giants than I do Dallas. Giants and Brian Daboll won with the same team that Joe Judge couldn't win with, and now they'll have. I don't know what the cap space situation is, but I imagine they have some cap space to go get players, and then they'll have the draft to continue to fix the roster that way. I just don't know the way Dak played at the end of the year, and maybe he was injured too, but we didn't hear about it. But he looked terrible.
Well, he had his thumb, that knocked him out a few games. Same thing with Russell Wilson, and Wilson hasn't been the same quarterback since that thumb injury.
Yeah, Wilson should be saying that every week when he talks to the media because that thumb injury was 2 seasons ago.
The Cowboys won 12 games in 2 straight seasons. Like, to me,
and you still don't trust them though.
I don't trust them in the playoffs. I trust them in the regular season.
Okay,
Classic Cowboys.
They'll get to the playoffs and then All right, fair enough. All right, I'm going to go with the Cowboys as my early bet to miss the playoffs just because
Oh
it's
my
fun.
gosh.